So today I'm going over how to get out of debt, how to actually get ahead in life financially. I grew up in poverty and now have well over $1 million in net worth. I did that in a very short span of years. So a couple of facts I want to go through. One, 53% of Americans don't have enough to cover a $1,000 emergency without, going further into debt, asking to borrow money from somebody else, that sort of thing, or selling something. 24% of Americans spend over 95% of their income on necessities, and I would say actually live paycheck to paycheck. And we'll talk about how do you make more money, because in that situation, if you're making $30,000, $20,000 a year, it's going to be very hard to get yourself out without making more money. So we need to fix that. 38% of Americans making over $100,000 a year say that they live paycheck to paycheck. Now, they can still benefit from increasing their earnings. However, at this point, this income, I would say that more of this is on spending habits and decisions like where do you live, how big your house is your car new, are you replacing it a bit too often, let's say, those types of things. But they can also increase their earnings, which would help in this situation. Overall, about 48% of all Americans believe that they live paycheck to paycheck. So the first thing we need to do is you want to write down all of your income. What are your bills? What are your debts? And we're going to try to automate as many things as possible. We're going to automate the bill payments after each payday to avoid any late fees or overdraft fees, that sort of thing, because I know several people in my family, for example, that for some reason they're paying, $70 a month in overdraft fees, and that could have easily went to paying down some of their debt. So that's just timing, paying attention to where your money is, and not overdrafting. So before I go into budgeting, what you really want to ask yourself is, what's the goal that I have in mind? And you want to make it meaningful. And the reason why is because you're going to ask yourself every time you're about to make a purchase, does this get me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And if it's not very meaningful, well, you'll choose to buy that article of clothing or the drink or whatever it is that you don't necessarily need at that moment in time, let's say, but you want. So are you willing to give up something now to get something better later? And think about your goal from being in your goal. So, for example, I don't want to say, oh, it would be great to have, a 3-bedroom house and a car that's from this decade and no bill collectors calling me. What I would say is, it feels really great living in this house, being able to sit on my front porch or go in the backyard and play with the kids. It's really nice having a car that I don't have to worry about breaking down. And I really enjoy it. I haven't received a single phone call from anybody that's looking for, debts for the last so many years. Think about it from your goal, not thinking of your goal, if that makes any sense. Makes it a little bit more powerful. So let's go in and make our budget. So your budget should be less than 50% on your needs. That would be basically your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, the minimum payments on all of your debt, your food, that sort of thing. After you get through the needs, then you want to have less than 30% spent on your wants. And again, the less you spend here and the more you spend on paying down debts, the quicker you're going to be out of debt, which gives you more money freed up later. Here, I want to say you have to have a minimum of 20% of your income goes to your debts, savings, investments. So what do we want to do? Let's get rid of the things that are the least painful. So we want to go trim any unused subscriptions, go through all your statements, see where you're spending money. So I know I have subscriptions or memberships, and we'll go through and we'll cancel a few of these. And they don't seem like a lot. It might be like $5 a month, $10 a month. But when you have multiple of those, it adds up to $50, $100, $200 a month pretty quick. See what you can cut that doesn't really impact your life. So you help to pay down whatever those debts are without actually majorly impacting your life. 4, I'm going to say, let's earn some more money. So I have a bunch of videos that go into more depth on, how do you get more hours? How do you get raises, promotions? How do you go about that? How do you change jobs? I also have multiple videos on the channel that talk about how to start various businesses with less than $1,000. And multiple of those types of businesses can easily generate, $50, $100+ thousand a year. Anything that you don't need that you have laying around, we all have stuff in our house or apartments, uh, sell those things that you don't use anymore. And that will free up space, declutter your area, as well as give you some more cash to pay down the debts. Number 5, let's stop the bleeding. Basically, stop taking on any debt by creating an emergency fund. What you want to do at this point is just get to a $1,000 emergency fund. This is not necessarily like a robust emergency fund, but many of the issues that you're going to run into, like your fridge or washer or toilet, or something breaks, or your car has issues and you pop a tire, you need an alternator, you need to go through inspection, $1,000 generally gets you most of the way there, if not covers the entire thing. So that way you're not panicking and taking on high interest debt. You just pay it off, you rebuild that fund, and move along. I just had a car inspection, and I remember back when I was broke, car inspections were horrible because even if I needed brakes or tires, $500 was a lot of money, and I wasn't able to just pay that. I would have to work extra hours, go find side jobs, do things like that. So it was like a dreaded thing back then. Now I have over a 6-month emergency fund, over $100,000 in cash. So when I go to a car inspection and they go, oh, the bill's $1,200, I'm just like, oh, okay, that makes my life much easier. And that's, again, 14 years after being deep in debt. I was about $43,000 in debt after college, and it took me a bit of time to get here. So at this point, what I'm going to say is, in order to stop taking on debt, stop using your credit card. I'm not saying cancel your credit cards because that could impact your credit score to the negative side. What I'm saying is stop using the credit card. If you want to cut it up or like destroy it or whatever, just don't cancel it. You're going to keep paying those down. While you're going through this, I would say use cash or use debit cards. I would say cash in an envelope. If you need help to sort out, this as much as for rent, this is for groceries, that sort of thing. That's the old method of doing it. You want to break the addiction. Think of debt and credit cards are basically like giving someone that's in Alcoholics Anonymous, giving them alcohol, giving them beer. So you don't want to keep feeding the debt, because there's basically, it's easy to swipe a card. If you have cash, there's a bit more resistance to that transaction, which generally makes it so that people spend less money. Number 6, I'm going to invest. I'm going to use my 401k, my 403b, any of these that have a company match. The reason I'm talking about investing before paying down some of the debt is that if it's company match, and let's say they match dollar for dollar up to, I don't know, the first $5,000. If I put $5,000 in, they put $5,000 in. There's nowhere else that I can go where I can double my money overnight. So I'm going to take full advantage of that because it's basically getting paid more money. So I'm going to do that first. Step 7, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up any credit card companies that I owe money to, and I'm going to ask to reduce either the balance, the interest rate, or both. And I'll let them know that I'm trying to pay down their debt and pay them off. And many times they'll actually lower the interest rate to help you pay that off quicker. And they're fine with that. And if they tell me no, they can't reduce the balance and they can't reduce the interest rate, I'm going to say, hey, if I file for bankruptcy, you're going to get nothing. Would you rather have nothing, or would you have, something? So many times I've seen this work for family members and others. They'll reduce the interest rate for, say, 6 months or 12 months as a gesture to help you pay down that balance a little quicker. Another caution here is that many debt consolidation businesses do the exact same thing, and they're going to collect about 15 to 20% and charge you that amount of money for that service, or you could just do it yourself. A lot of the paid debt consolidation companies are also scams, so be cautious with that. So I would avoid that, and I would just handle it myself. Number 8, check and dispute any errors that you have of debt that is not yours with the credit agencies. So I'm going to go to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and every year you can pull up your credit history effectively. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check that report, and if any of them have errors, I'm going to dispute that. Once it's disputed, companies have 30 days to challenge it. If they don't challenge my dispute and it's not seen as frivolous, effectively that gets removed from my credit history. So it's not my debt. So that's why I would do that as well. Now, after making sure that the debt that's left is the lowest interest possible and there's not errors in my debt, I'm going to focus my extra principal payments on the debt, but which one should I do first? So there's two ways to do this. There's the snowball method, there's the avalanche method, and I guess there's a third way where you just pay equally across them, but I wouldn't advise that either. So the snowball method, this is where you pay off the smallest debt first. The reason why the snowball method works better in many cases is money is more psychological than anything else. And if you pay off the smallest debt first, you can do it pretty quickly generally. And if you do it quick, you get a quick win. People then feel good. That reinforces the habit, makes them want to do more. That then frees up that payment on the smallest debt, and you can take that money and put it towards the next smallest debt. The other method is the avalanche method. This makes more sense mathematically, but people are not robots. People are emotional beings, let's say, and that's generally what has led to the problem in the first place. So I wouldn't advise this for the majority of the population, even though it makes the most sense mathematically. But let's say you're paying off a debt and you're giving up things that you like for a long period of time, but you see no progress and the debt is still there. It's a lower, number, but it's the same payment that's due as a minimum payment each month. So you don't get as much in terms of a good feeling for anybody that's more emotionally based. Me personally, I've used the avalanche method and paid off my highest interest first, but that's more because I'm a freak of nature and I'm an engineer. So everything I do is data and math. Most other people are going to use the snowball method because that's more psychological, emotional. It has a lot more success there for most people, at least. After I've paid off all of my debt except for, say, a mortgage, I'm going to save about 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund. Why 3 to 6 months? Well, 27% currently of people that are on unemployment have been unemployed for more than 6 months. So you may actually need 6 months to basically weather that storm. So that's where the 6 months comes from. I'm going to keep that money in something that's FDIC, maybe a couple of ladders for CDs or high yield savings. So I'm earning some interest so that I'm not falling behind to inflation. And after I get that 6 months, let's say, of emergency fund, and I'm already getting my 100% company match, I'm going to go and invest using a Roth IRA, or if I make too much money, a backdoor Roth IRA until I get maxed out. Right now, that's $7,500 per year per person. As a married couple filing jointly, that's $15,000 a year. After the Roth IRA is maxed out, then I go back to the 401k, 403b, or similar, basically company-sponsored plans, and I'm going to go until I max those out. If I've maxed out all of that, then I go back and I fill up the taxable brokerage account, or I might pay down my house. The reason why I go through the company match, the Roth IRA, the 401k, and these types of things first is they are tax advantaged. I don't feel like keep paying taxes on my money. I want to put that away and not pay taxes again, or not pay taxes when it goes in, those sorts of things, because taxes do eat away at a substantial amount of the growth over the lifetime of an account. Also remember, whenever it's in a brokerage account or this 401k or an IRA, whatever it is, just because it's there, it's not actually invested yet. You actually have to pick the stocks or ETF or a mutual fund that you want to invest in. And then you have to buy those shares. I would have it automated. So every time you get money and it goes into the account, it's dollar cost averages. Basically, you don't have to think about it. Just automate as much as possible. If you rely on yourself, we forget to do things or we put it off, we delay it, and it never happens because tomorrow is always going to be tomorrow. It's never going to be right now. And if you automate it, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry if it's going up, going down. I primarily invest about 70 to 80% into the S&P 500, which is the largest 500 companies in the United States. I invest in about 10 to 20% in total international stocks. So that's international fund. and I have a bond fund that I'll invest in about 0 to 10% there. For someone like myself, I'm over 20 years away from retirement, so I'm not really that worried. I have time for it to grow, and I have that 6+ month emergency fund. So even if stocks go down for a year or a couple of years, I'm not really worried because I have the cash to make it through any of those downturns without panicking. Again, emotion is what really hurts investment returns because people tend to sell at the lowest and they tend to buy when stocks are highest. So typical returns, or historical returns, I should say, for homes, it's usually been about 3 to 4%. It's usually just above the inflation rate. It's not much more. Stocks typically, over the long run, return about 10 to 11%. I've been seeing 20 to 30% returns over the last several years. That is not normal. So I expect at some point we'll return back to something closer to like 10 or 11%. In terms of credit cards, typically you won't find anything 20, 29% guaranteed rates of return. But if you pay off high interest debt, it's effectively like getting that return because you're not bleeding the money out and making the credit card company rich. And if you think about it, company match, typically in a company sponsored plan, they'll give, 25 to 100% match. So if I put $1 in and they have 100% match, they put $1 in. So I've gone from $1 in, now it's $2. I put 10 grand in, they put 10 grand in. It's now $20,000. I'm not going to get a return like that anywhere else. So I'm always going to take company match first. Generally, I don't invest in stocks unless I don't need the money for at least 5 years. And in terms of homes, I don't like to buy real estate if I'm going to be buying and selling the real estate within basically less than 7 or 8 years. So if I'm going to live somewhere for 3, 4 years or something like that, typically it's better to rent. If I'm going to live there for more than 7 years, 10 years, whatever, generally it makes sense to buy. Again, real estate is local. Work with a licensed real estate agent before you purchase anything. I hope you found this useful. Please subscribe. I cover a lot of financial topics such as how to make more money, how to save, how to invest, how to be an entrepreneur, start your own businesses, as well as reduce your risk so you don't have as much of a risk of loss, let's say. So if any of that interests you, please subscribe and have a great day.